the one who sang so well. When Kathy left him, Jack began singing everywhere. He was in the car by himself, the house, and then that shit apartment. It wasn't because he was happy to be alone all of a sudden. He didn't know why. He was always annoyed when people on the phone thought he was a woman, but it made sense when he heard himself singing, when he felt his head lift and the skin of his face stretch as he widened his eyes and opened his mouth, and out came a high, soft voice, almost like his mother's. It wasn't even songs he particularly liked, and sometimes it was songs he didn't know he'd memorized after years of hearing them so often. Sometimes he turned a commercial jingle into a duet. He felt so dumb, sliding into the living room with a microwave meal and singing along with the TV. It was the guy at the restaurant Kathy used to work at. She'd started as a waitress and ended up running the kitchen. She loved the work and the people. She loved to talk. And the whole place made a show whenever Jack and Gwendolyn came by. Gwendolyn would have been 6 or 7 then, and when the manager, Litz, gave her free rein at the treasure chest by the cash register, she relished the envy of all the other little kids in the place. She pranced out the door with the new ring or a tiny dinosaur or a pair of dice, since she always got extra. Kathy told him about Litz on their usual night for the babysitter, and Jack knew something was up when all she wanted to do was go to a place down the street for coffee and apple pie. "Me and Litz," Kathy said finally. "We just kept in touch after the place closed down." She wasn't trying to hold his hand, which was good. "We'd been through a lot, you know." "The trenches," Jack said. "What?" "You always said, you and the girls and the cooks and Litz, you always said you'd been in the trenches together." She smiled. "Sunday, after church." "I know, Kathy." Now that she'd started to open up, she was glowing. She'd been miserable for weeks, and he was tired of trying to pick that lock. He was tired of playing the game where she waited for him to ask what was wrong, just to show he was paying attention. But he never stopped paying attention. He stopped caring. And well, then we talked a few times on the phone. I don't know. And I realized. And now he took her hand. "I don't know," she said. "I missed him. I missed seeing him. Because when it wasn't busy at the old place, we did talk a lot." "We had him over for dinner," he said quietly. "Oh, that wasn't anything. That was before." "If you say so." "The restaurant was still open then." "I know." He waited. He didn't know how he felt, but whatever it was, he didn't want to show it to her. "So, what are you saying? What are we going to do about it?" She looked hurt, and he said, "Kathy, please, save the details for your friends. If you say you've fallen in love with this guy, that's all I want to hear. I don't need to hear the rest." "I don't want to hurt you." "Well, I am hurt, but so what? You're hurt too. Christ. The last 10 years have hurt us both. But if you're waiting for me to convince you to stay, we're not 19 anymore." "I'm not saying I want to marry him. I don't even want to live with him yet." "But you don't want to live with me." He saw her hesitation and rapped the table. He toyed with the pie crust on his plate. He took out the notepad and pen he always carried and started making a table, a list, the cost of everything. "There's number 1. I'll find a place." "You mean tonight?" "No, not tonight, Kathy, but come on, isn't that what you're saying?" "Yes." "Well, It's going to be confusing as hell for Gwendolyn, so we don't tell her until we have to. I can still be over at night when she goes to bed, and then I'll go wherever." Gwendolyn was the surprise neither of them ever wanted, and it felt sometimes that they'd given her such an ornate name to make up for this, to convince themselves she was worth their attention, though that never worked. Now she was the only reason he and Kathy would ever talk again. Gwendolyn was 5 headstrong girls all rolled into one. She and Jack and Kathy lived in a house on Spencer Lane, a small road of 5 or 6 houses that dipped down off Thompson Run, and one of the happiest moments of Jack's day was watching her climb that hill and wait for the school bus. Thompson Run was a busy road in the morning, but Gwendolyn loved to take her time getting to the bus. She loved making traffic on both sides wait and wait. Sometimes she pretended to tie her shoes again, just for effect. She noticed everything. And she noticed something was off with him and Kathy right away. "Why do you leave right after I go to bed?" she asked one morning when they were all driving to the mall. Jack hesitated. "I don't always." "Now you do." "Honey," Kathy said, "what are you talking about?" Jack said, "I don't want your mom to be cooking every night, is all." He shrugged at the rearview mirror and his daughter's skepticism. "I guess I have been getting us a lot of McDonald's lately." "But you don't come back home." "What are you talking about? Of course I do. You're probably asleep by then." She sighed at her parents with huge seriousness, as if she'd given them a million chances to straighten up, but that they kept on lying. She said, "I don't think so." Neither of them knew what to do with her. They had expected that by the time she got into grade school, they would all be able to sit down and watch TV together, or read a book. But she hated whatever they gave her, whatever they wanted to do. They had heard of kids being contrary, but with Gwendolyn there was no let-up, no downtime of just being sweet, or lazy, or happy. When Kathy had gone out of town for a few days to see her father, Gwendolyn had skipped feeling distraught about missing her mom and moved straight into anger. When they got back from the mall that night, and after Gwendolyn went to bed, Jack asked if he could sleep on the couch, or maybe leave closer to midnight. He was making coffee for the 2 of them, but Kathy had already started rearranging the cabinets, and he didn't know where anything was. "I hope What's-His-Face is ready to deal with her, if you 2 are serious yet." "You know his name, Jack." "I might be going along with this, but it doesn't mean I want to say his name." "Gwendolyn always liked him." Jack was sitting down at the kitchen table. He had no idea where the sugar was and didn't want to ask. Of course she did. Every time she sees him, he gives her a little toy from the treasure chest. He winced at the black coffee. "Just wait till he shows up and wants to be alone with you, because she'll pick up on that right away. If it comes to that, we'll figure it out. I should have a room at my place fixed up for her by then. It won't be too big. Maybe we can go in on some art supplies or something. I don't want her to think that coming over to Dad's is where all the crappy toys are, and the old bed." Kathy laughed. "She might try to walk back here." "You know she would," he said. He pointed out the window. I'm pretty sure she's been back to the Dempsey house." After they'd all gone to bed one night, Jack heard something and looked out the window. Gwendolyn had hidden a brown paper bag with sandwiches and Jack's good camera behind the doghouse the previous owner had left, and they'd watched her from the window to see where she was going before they ran to get her. She entered an overgrown field at whose end, a few hundred yards away, and overlooking McKnight Road, was the house where the girls' reformatory had been, back in the 40s. They used to joke that it would only take a phone call to get Gwendolyn sent there. She told Kathy she was trying to run away, but Jack didn't think so. If she really wanted to run away, she could have been in Erie by the morning. He was sure she'd wanted them to hear her. She'd made just enough noise so they'd have to see her go over the bridge by the stream and cross the main road. She'd done it to scare them, he knew, because they scared her all the time. He and Kathy had been together since right after high school, when their classmates heading for college were suddenly gone in August, probably forever. The year before, Jack had gotten a job where his mother used to work, cleaning office buildings downtown, and when that same August came around, he took on more hours. It wasn't a summer job anymore, and he was able to move out on his own pretty quickly. That's when Kathy got her first waitressing job, too, and they'd met when she was working overnight once, when he'd come in for a 4 a.m. steak and eggs. When Kathy's mom died in a car accident around New Year's, she suddenly knew she had feelings for Jack because all she wished was to be at work so she could could talk to him and see him. Jack knew something was up when he'd said yes to her asking him to come to the funeral and then to meet her grieving father. The last time he'd been to a funeral was when he was 5, and he'd broken out laughing for no reason and gotten the worst beating of his life when they got home at night. But when Kathy asked, there was no question. He found the money for a sports coat and slacks and held Kathy's hand at the wake, praying he didn't do something inappropriate. When he realized his father would have beaten him no matter what anyway, he calmed and was able to focus on this girl that he realized he was falling in love with. Before their old friends started sophomore year, they were married. Kathy called him on a Monday afternoon and asked to see him before Gwendolyn got home from school. When he got to the house, she was on the porch, and he knew from how she looked that she and Litz were done. She'd even put Jack's old chair next to hers, and she was wearing one of her all-denim numbers she knew that he loved to joke about. This was her way of inviting him back, and his heart leapt at the thought. He waited for her to start. Litz was over last night, she said. She wouldn't look at him. She was past being sad, and so she hadn't been crying, but she looked trapped in her chair, rocking it with her big toe each time it fell towards the porch. What happened? She gave him a look that told him the story. She wasn't choosing him. She was resigned to him. Just at bedtime, you know, Gwendolyn does one of her things. It almost doesn't even matter what. She gestured with her hands. And it just went up and up and up, and she's wondering who this guy is, even though you and I have talked to her about him, and she sees that I'm trying something, that I'm being careful. She shakes her head. No, she sees that I want something that will make me happy, and she just steps right in front of it. What the hell did she do? Kathy stopped rocking. It's what I did. He laughed. What the hell did you do? She gestured with her hands, made a web between the two of them. What we always do. He took a step forward. You mean in front of Litz? He was going to see it anyway. It's the only way to get her to stop. So I smacked her right across the face. I yanked her back to me, and I threw her over my lap and spanked her I don't know how hard. I don't know how many times. And I'm screaming the whole time. You know how she gets. And she won't shut up, and you just have to scream louder. She stopped. And by the time I come out of it, it's her sobbing, and Litz isn't even there. He left, and I didn't even notice. I was running around the house looking for him, and Gwendolyn said his car was gone. I finally got him on the phone this morning. He doesn't want anything to do with me. I told him he didn't understand. I told him it's actually gotten better. Kathy? And then he tries to say he can't judge anybody. But it was me singing that did it. He said I was singing while I was hitting her, like you said your mother did, while your dad was beating you, trying to drown it out. Jack put his hand up, and she stopped, and she held up the newspaper. Right after they got married, the two of them had almost started a cleaning business. Kathy would be the personable and bubbly side of it, while Jack would be the muscle, at least to start. Eventually, they'd hire a bunch of girls and have regular customers, and Kathy would teach them how to pay attention to the family pictures people put up, and how old their kids were, and where they went on vacation. That's how you got referrals most of the time, becoming part of the woodwork, knowing just the right details. But before they could get started, Kathy got pregnant with Gwendolyn. On the porch that afternoon, Kathy said it was time for them to try again. The newspaper had a listing for a restaurant and gas station for sale. It was out on Babcock and right at the corner at the bottom of Cemetery Lane. Kathy said she'd driven by it earlier in the day, and while it needed a bit of work, they could keep the color scheme it had to minimize the renovations. There was a lot of candy apple red booths and countertops, red and white stripes. It had an old-fashioned diner feel, and the gas station looked big enough to sell merchandise. They could get fresh bread and pastries delivered every morning, something a little more than the newspaper and stale coffee. She even had a name for it, the Rose. Jack knew where she was going, and eventually she asked about the money he'd put away after his mother had died, the one who sang so well. The only reason he'd been able to find an apartment and buy furniture for it so quickly was because, if they'd done anything for him, his parents taught him how to save money. When his mother died, this wasn't long after Gwendolyn was born, she left him a good chunk, and they'd never touched it, in part because she asked that it be used for her only grandchild's education. But Jack didn't hesitate when he saw what Kathy was saying. If the Rose became successful, they could replace all the money they used by the time Gwendolyn was 18. But until then, the money and this new place would save their marriage. If their interest in each other had changed, they still loved a good project. They still worked well together. It was ideal. Jack could run the gas station, and Kathy the restaurant, and their differences and discomforts would be consumed in running around and supervising unreliable teenagers or adults who would call off, quit, or always arrive late. And the ones who were stable and dependable enough, they would become friends with them both, so there would be no chance of another Litz developing during downtime. They would be in the trenches together, and Gwendolyn would have nothing to do with it. It would give them something to do that wasn't her, something that didn't terrify them with what they had already done. Jack sitting alone in the dark afterwards and hating himself, or Kathy sobbing outside by the stream behind the house, or the three of them becoming used to it, the escalation and the screaming. How easy it got each time to put an end to it by hitting her. The more time they spent outside the house, the less likely it was to happen. Gwendolyn was almost old enough to be at home by herself anyway, and by then they could both work at the Rose all day. That new family, the Trasks, had moved in on Spencer Lane too, and they had a girl Gwendolyn's age. If Jack reminisced about childhood at all, it was coming home from school and going to his friend's house, where a mother, who was actually kind, made everybody grilled cheese sandwiches. Maybe that's what Gwendolyn needed too. More time with a family that wasn't her own. Jack and Kathy got in the car to drive over to the address, and neither of them noticed the school bus approaching from the other direction, and they pulled onto Thompson Run before it stopped at their street. As Gwendolyn stepped off the bus, she didn't notice her parents' car in the distance, and when she got home, she didn't think it was strange that neither of them was there. Only after dumping her backpack in her room did she think to look around to be sure, to look in the backyard and the basement, even the attic. She finally allowed her entire body to lift at the thought of all the emptiness and quiet that was all hers, though she had no idea for how long. She made herself a sandwich and watched TV, and brought a glass of milk up to her room, and she lay on her bed reading until it got dark. She didn't know where her parents were, and it was one of the best days.